Inside the corridors of power in Burkina Faso, something strange is happening. There are no regular guards surrounding Captain Ibrahim Traore. Silence, accuracy, and unwavering loyalty surround him. Every step he takes is shadowed by a sentinel in a mask. The strike reaction is directed by a man they refer to as Gaddafi. Another, simply referred to as number 3, watches, listens, and eliminates dangers before they have a chance to breathe. It's not a security detail. Born in a country where treachery spreads more quickly than gunfire, it is a survival philosophy. And now we ask, who keeps the protector safe? What exactly are they protecting? Let's investigate. They don't dress in uniform. They don't give salutes. They don't grin. They're already there when Captain Ibrahim Traore enters a room. They are just invisible. But it seems like a change in the atmosphere before a storm. 1. A masked sentinel whose eyes never flicker during public appearances stands just behind him. Another waits at the edge of each hallway, his hand resting close to his weapon, but never coming into contact with it. The man they refer to as number 3, the operation's brains, is usually close by but never visible. He listens, analyzes, and memorizes faces and exits as though mapping danger itself. The most covered security squad in West Africa, Traoré's personal guard, revolves around this. Even among soldiers, a team with such discipline has become legendary. They do not belong to the traditional presidential guard. They are exclusive to the revolution that led to Traoré's rise to power, which was founded on the idea that devotion should be demonstrated by perseverance rather than social standing. They live in a precision-driven environment. Every path Traoré chooses is put to the test twice, once by instinct and once by intelligence. Unpredictability, windows, lighting, angles, and even the reflection on polished marble are all gone from every place he walks into. Their presence is a formula that must be solved to guarantee that the captain survives. It's simple to write them off as merely an additional security measure. However, if you watch them for 5 minutes, you'll discover that they are completely different. Men who have mastered the ability to see what others fail to notice. One monitors the horizon, another the audience, and a third the quiet in between applause while the captain speaks in public. Instead of waiting for a shot, they are seeing the micro movements of hesitancy and anxiety. Danger in the Sahel doesn't always come with a gun. Sometimes it's a phone call, and other times it's an ally who becomes too silent. Their creation illustrates how Traoré views power as a delicate flame in a storm rather than as a sign of supremacy. He is aware of the weight of history, that Gaddafi's guard broke ranks, that Sankara was betrayed by a comrade, and that every African reformer who stood up ultimately fell, not to invaders, but to those closest to them. Every aspect of this unit's design has been influenced by that memory. Field loyalty, not ritual, was the criterion used to select these individuals. They all fought alongside Traoré on the front lines in the Sahel, guys who persevered through heat, exhaustion, starvation, and ambushes. They have witnessed him battle rather than give orders. Their loyalty is therefore personal. It's to the man who stood next to them in the trenches when bullets didn't give a damn about titles, not to the president's office. There is a hierarchy even in their quiet. The man in the mask, who never leaves the captain's side, symbolizes closeness. Gaddafi is the embodiment of reaction, the one who takes action when all else stops. Because communication itself is dangerous, number 3 orchestrates the invisible, the strategist whose radio seldom speaks. When together, they function as a closed circuit. One senses, one acts, and one makes a decision. They do undercover nighttime infiltration, drone and intelligence exercises based on actual coup scenarios, live fire drills in the desert and isolation training. No soldier from outside the circle joins them, and there is no video of their meetings. Their reputation has been established by what never occurs rather than by boasting. The ambushes that never happen, the coups that fail, the bullets that never hit their victim. They appear merciless to outsiders. They are essential to Traoré. He needed soldiers who would sooner die than hesitate in an area where loyalty is transactional. They stand out from the others because they defend his mission rather than his position. And these guys continue to be unseen architects of stability as Burkina Faso rebuilds itself in the face of threats, sanctions, and influence conflicts. Even though you can't hear their voices, you can see their work every time Traoré bravely enters a crowd. However, in a society where power typically corrupts people, how was such loyalty made possible? Loyalty is created, not born. Additionally, the new order in Burkina Faso was designed with fire in mind. You must first comprehend the ideology that shaped the men who protect Captain Ibrahim Traore, because this unit was intended to safeguard an idea that Africa can defend itself without seeking permission, rather than merely a guy. The world anticipated another military dictator when Traoré came to power in 2022. Rather, they were given a soldier who refused to act like one. He was constructing trust rather than palaces or parades. However, trust had to be tested in a nation where betrayal had already altered history too many times. At that point, he started choosing persons from the forgotten regions of the Sahel rather than from generals or other distinguished elites. Despite fighting with antiquated weaponry and experiencing privation, the soldiers remained unbroken. These were folks who obeyed orders because they believed in a purpose rather than out of fear of punishment. One of them was a northern sniper who was injured and thought to be dead, but Traoré saved him. Another was a communications officer who refused to accept a payment to keep silent after discovering an intelligence leak funded by France. Each individual shared a tale of perseverance, demonstrating that allegiance was proof rather than sentiment. Traoré's hiring guidelines were straightforward. You must comprehend the leader's values before you can defend him. Each contender was questioned about their motivations rather than their strategies. He allegedly said, "My life or my mission? Which would you protect first?" Those who responded to your life were promptly dismissed. This is a circle of believers, not a team of defenders. Instead of being hierarchical, their allegiance is ideological. Instead of viewing Traoré as a ruler, they see him as a soldier who turned disobedience into policy and a symbol of the generation recovering Africa's agency. They are hazardous because a man defending his pay hesitates, while a man defending meaning does not. Their intensity can be explained by this way of thinking. They hardly talk and don't make jokes in public. They reside apart from the rest of the army in a facility that is inaccessible to even government ministers, and they train for longer than the National Guard. No media, no images, and no communication with outsiders are all strictly prohibited. One of them allegedly claimed that visibility kills, but that concealment conceals something more complex than physical conditioning, psychological conditioning. Every member receives instruction on intelligence resilience, including how to recognize deception in speech, identify manipulation, and withstand compulsion in the event of capture. They are trained to perceive risk not as an isolated incident, but rather as a pattern, subtle shifts in body language, tone, or timing that indicate purpose well in advance of an actual attack. Traoré is aware that coups start with whispers rather than gunfire. A convoy abruptly alters course, an officer postpones issuing an order, or a story circulates. The treachery has developed by the time blood is spilt. His guards are prepared to catch the sickness while it is still incubating. This strategy has subtly changed Burkina Faso's internal security mindset, whereby Western governments use expensive software, hardware, drones, and surveillance systems to increase security. Traoré uses human discipline to construct it. He is aware of something that most experts overlook. Stability in Africa is a personal matter rather than a technological one. These folks are not interchangeable because people violate systems rather than connections. Because each one contains a layer of Traoré's approach ingrained in his mind, they are all vital. They are not only trained to respond, but also to anticipate him and comprehend his actions, thoughts, and decisions. To put it another way, they extend his instincts in addition to protecting his body. This circle is practically indestructible because of this. It's an echo, not a wall. They are affected by every action he takes. He is already aware of every threat they perceive. You must comprehend how they think in order to comprehend this unit. You cannot simply see what they do. There is only one principle that governs their world. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. Threats are anticipated rather than confronted. From the outside, Traoré's team's ability to foil conspiracies before they gain strength, intercept attacks before they begin, and thwart plots before they develop seems almost magical. However, the truth is not magical. It's a technique, a system based on quiet and expectation. Every day starts in the same manner. The group goes over what they refer to as the horizon file before daybreak. The next 72 hours are more important than the next 24. They record the army's movements, chats, financial transactions, and even sentiments. It's all about patterns. They take notice if a commander goes to the same cafe twice a week. They inquire as to why a foreign contact abruptly cancels a trip. Their reasoning is straightforward. Cool plans begin in routine, not in bunkers. Proximity analysis is led by Traoré's constant sentinel, the masked man. He has to read energy in addition to keeping watch. Traoré observes the responses, posture, and breathing patterns of ministers. He has received training in identifying dishonesty through micro-expressions. This type of instruction is not seen in military ranks, but rather in intelligence services. A hand tremor is more significant to him than a speech. The combatant, Gaddafi, is in charge of the reaction. He trains his sub-team in close-quarters tactics tailored to the dust, heat, and unpredictability of African terrain rather than Western urban battle. His men use traditional guerrilla tactics with contemporary coordination to quickly transition from escort to engagement. They operate on instinct that has been honed by habit rather than waiting for commands. The third person is the quiet strategist who is the unseen glue that keeps everything together. He reads information, not soldiers. Every rumor, intercepted communication, and change in allegiance goes through him. He ranks threats according to their potential impact on morale rather than their size. Because togetherness, rather than firepower, is Traoré's greatest weapon. An army that is divided can collapse more quickly than one that is ambushed. This concept is groundbreaking because it combines psychology, symbolism, and intelligence. Wars in the Sahel are waged not only with guns, but also with stories. These men are seen as followers of sovereignty in Burkina Faso, but the West refers to them as loyalists. Their purposeful quiet conveys the idea that power only needs to be there, invisible and unwavering. It doesn't need to make an announcement. Their activities go beyond defense. When Traoré travels, they arrive days beforehand and integrate themselves into local security personnel to find weak points. They stress test their own system by conducting what insiders refer to as mirror drills, which are mock coup rehearsals against themselves. The plan is revised if any reaction time is more than 5 seconds. However, Traoré appears to be conscious of a moral dilemma that underlies their effectiveness. To what extent is control excessive? Because total allegiance leads to total reliance. The guards control who approaches the convoy, who stays away, and even which ministers' vehicles are allowed to do so. In many respects, they not only safeguard the president, but also establish its boundaries of trust, and yet the system functions. For this reason, the captain enters dangerous areas fearlessly. Why does his government remain unwavering in the face of persistent Western media forecasts of instability? The invisible doctrine emphasizes stability through foresight rather than strength. However, this level of accuracy has repercussions. the system gets more isolated as it gets tighter. Additionally, unmanaged isolation can make it difficult to distinguish between paranoia and alertness. We've seen how the guards operate, so that's not the next question. It is the result of their silence becoming the most powerful voice in Burkina Faso's government. The same question eventually arises in all great systems. When does protection turn into control and cease to be protection? That question is not theoretical within the inner circle of Burkina Faso. It establishes the boundary between suffocation and survival. The purpose of Captain Ibrahim Traore's guards was to protect him against treachery. However, the more powerful that shield gets, the more he is cut off from the outside world. What started out as a stronghold against adversaries is gradually becoming into a filter that all access, emotion, and information must go through. Every revolution that lasts long enough to solidify is familiar with this dilemma. Loyalty is drawn to power, but when loyalty is absolute, it transforms power. Even Traoré's closest allies now watch what they say around him, since his guards have become so adept at efficiency. Fear of being misinterpreted by those who defend him, not fear of him. The quiet of the guards is more powerful than the words of any minister. Unintended consequences result from their supremacy in the chain of trust. For example, they determine which voices are safe, which faces join Traoré's meetings, and whose reports get to him first. It's prioritization, not censorship. Prioritization, however, is power in the unstable Sahelian political arena. Perception is controlled by whoever controls proximity, and reality is controlled by whoever controls perception. However, Traoré appears to be aware of the threat, which sets this position apart from other African governments. He is cautious, but not paranoid, according to insiders. He continues to visit provinces, interact with soldiers, and have direct conversations with residents. However, the tension is evident in every shot of the video. The unseen dance between his self-assurance and the vigilance of the men surrounding him. Every grin is scanned, every handshake is timed. Nevertheless, this structure fulfills its function. The instability that tore its neighbors apart has not affected Burkina Faso. The leaks of intelligence have ceased. Before it can escape a room, the coup chatter that used to reverberate across the barracks dies. Traoré's leadership has come to serve as an example of how security can serve as both a compass and armor when it is appropriately humanized. However, such equilibrium is brittle. The entire ideology might crumble under its own watchfulness if his guards ever mistake caution for betrayal or allegiance for weakness. Unintentionally, the very guys who sustain the revolution could strangle it. That is the terrible rhythm of defense. Its chance of extinguishing the flame increases with its proximity to it. But maybe that's the cost of changing a country in real time. Traoré supporters are products of a new African realism, not remnants of a paranoid state. They function on the premise that sovereignty requires guardians who are prepared to carry the moral burden of what protection requires, not merely visionaries. Burkina Faso is therefore at a turning point. In addition to serving as a reminder that trust, if monopolized, can turn into tyranny in disguise, the guards have evolved into symbols and protections, demonstrating that independence can be maintained from within. Traoré's ability to survive is no longer the question. That's what he did. Whether he can maintain his ties to the people, the truth, and the movement that gave him meaning is the question. Because every wall erected to safeguard authority ultimately poses the same question to its creator. Will you live behind it, or perish as a result of it? Every revolution eventually outgrows its weapons. At a certain point, the question becomes what the leader's protection has come to symbolize rather than who is protecting them. Captain Ibrahim Traore is now in that position. Not only as a man protected by devoted guards, but also as a representation of a continent discovering how to defend its own independence. The men with masks and rifles were never the main focus of this story. Rather, it was about what their presence revealed about the world. power in the Sahel faces infiltration, as well as adversaries. Every foreign handshake has a purpose, and every intelligence leak has an impact. For decades, private companies hired from overseas, the French Foreign Legion or UN contingents provided protection to African leaders. Sovereignty was sacrificed for their safety. Traoré reversed that reasoning. He created internal defense, with African hands defending African choices. His bodyguard force is more than just a security detail because of this. They make a statement, a reminder that multilingual guardians are no longer necessary in Africa. However, this decision carries a significant moral burden. Protection ceases to be invisible the instant it takes on symbolic meaning. These men are now both a spotlight and a protection. Every move they make demonstrates the legitimacy of Traoré's movement. The West refers to it as repression if they go too far. The same critics refer to it as ineptitude if they falter. They tread carefully between identifying and defending a cause, between necessity and aesthetics. Nevertheless, what they've accomplished is unquestionably transformational. Once derided as a state prone to coups, Burkina Faso now exudes discipline. The uneasy peace that permeates Ouagadougou's streets is not the calm of terror, but rather the calm that comes after regaining control. It's the serenity of a country that no longer needs permission to breathe. However, this serenity is accompanied with quiet, which can be misleading, because a concept cannot be permanently protected by even the most devoted guard. A legacy cannot be secured by guns, but they can secure a moment. Continuity of conviction, rather than fear of failure, is what keeps nations alive. Now, Traoré's task is to ensure that the discipline of his guards becomes the discipline of a government by converting loyalty into institutions. In this way, the presidential shield serves as a link between different historical periods, between the instability that shaped Africa's history and the potential for sovereignty to shape its future. Every leader on the continent is forced to consider a more profound question by their presence. If someone else makes sure you are secure, can you really call yourself independent? For Traoré, the answer has already been revealed in the quiet of those standing behind him, vigilant and unwavering. However, whether that quiet serves as the basis for a new order or is merely the echo of another cycle will be determined by history. Revolutions are measured by what survives them, not by how they start. When concealment is essential to a revolution's existence, can it really remain pure? Are these men defending a leader or a concept that poses a challenge to the established global order? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.